Okay, today I'm going to put this bar in. I'll try to get the front roll bars done, and I'll go ahead and build the engine. I've got it all the pieces out of the Richard Petty kit to build, since I've already built Cale's engine, so just to show you how I do that. But let's get this bar in. You can see I got it taped up. This bar is going to go through this hole right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's the hole it's going to go through. So I retaped it to where it can go through. I also taped the roll cage down because it kept wanting to pop up back here, and you can kind of see it's still doing it. So kind of tape it down a little bit better, because when you glue all this stuff in, you want it to be how it's going to be whenever it's built. So first thing I gotta do is fish this through. Help if I did it the right way. This tape might get in the way. I'm gonna loosen this up here so I can get in to this. Let's take it all the way off. I'm gonna go back in and tape that once I get this bar in place. So the long end goes through, and it's gonna meet up with the frame there, and then this top bar is going to go, like I said last time, right behind the crossbar that you did the first time. So I just want to pop up. If you see that, it doesn't want to sit down in there. So we're going to put a clothespin in there whenever we glue it. So let's get a little bit of glue. Hold it there for a second. Okay, so it's kind of stayed there. You gotta be careful when you do that it doesn't change the angle of what you're trying to do. So I just tried putting the clothespin on there, and it changed the angle of the bar down going to the frame here. So I may just have to leave it without, which is going to be pretty interesting probably. Okay, so I'm going to use it. It's just not the way I usually use it. I'm using it as a wedge to keep that bar pushed down so it's in the right spot where it needs to be. So I'm going to leave that alone for a while. I'll let that dry over here. And we'll get into building the engine here. I've already cleaned up all the flash or whatever on it, the individual pieces. So, and this is the way I do pretty much all of the engines I build. Go ahead and start with putting the halves together, and some may not have. Different kits are put together different ways. Some you actually have just the block already and you add the transmission to it. However, it's got to be done. Let's go ahead and start with the block, basically. So, got that good. Gonna clamp that down. I'll leave this the way it is. So that dry a good little bit, and then make sure that when you clamp this area that it doesn't twist the end of the transmission shaft housing, because sometimes it'll get off center and it's just going to make more work for you later on. So it should be good there. So then what I'll do is take care of the mating surfaces for your intake, your oil pan next, because that's what we're going to put on now. So I'll sand the seam between, or sand where the two halves meet, actually. Kind of make it flat, get the top part too. You just want a flattest surface as possible. Some older kits, you may need to use a file. It's a little bit more aggressive. With these, sanding stick works pretty good, so that's what I'm using. So I did the front part too because it has this cam chain cover on the front of it. So I'm gonna try to get the bottom side where the oil pan's gonna sit. And it's probably gonna be tough to get down in that little groove there. So I'll use flat file. I'll use the edge of it. It's skinny enough to get down in there. And then I got the transmission pan seam to do too. All right, let's start with the oil pan. I think, if you're not sure, check the instructions, because it's hard to remember which way the pan goes, but that part goes towards transmission, as you can see right there. So go ahead and get that done. I'll test fit first. All right, it's a good thing I did that. So the oil pans are rocking on there. It'll never sit flat. So I've got to take some material out of either the front side or the back side. So I'll probably just take it off the front. It's going to be easier. So go to that same flat file. I'm just going to sand it flat. And then we'll see what we got. Okay. So there, it's not rocking anymore. But by eliminating that piece up front, you're going to have to make sure that you have it on there straight. You don't want your oil pan to be leaning all crooked. So a little bit of glue. I'm using Tamiya extra thin. Just I've been using it pretty much exclusively for a long time now. It's just a great glue. Alright, so that's lined up pretty good. Since I'm on the bottom, I might as well get the transmission pan done. Let's test fit it. Let's tight squeeze. Alright. It should be good. You don't need much of this stuff. It does a pretty good job on its own. Alright. So lower half is done. Now, for the upper half. So this part is going to be where the radiator hose comes in, thermostat housing, whatever you call it. Back part's going to be the distributor. So what I like to do on these is I will do the intake first. And I'll work pretty quick. So get the intake down. Now, I'll go ahead and get the heads on as well. Just so I can get this gap taken care of between the intake and the head. If you do the heads first and then you put the intake on, there's a possibility that it's not going to line up. So then you'll have a big gap either on the bottom part or on the sides. So I just go ahead and do the intake first and then push the heads right up to it, so it makes a good seam there and looks the way it's supposed to. Alright, we'll go ahead and I'll probably glue the water pump onto that front cover first. Make sure you got it on the right way. Again, we're checking, make sure it all fits, and it does. Not much glue is needed right there. Alright, kind of let that set up a little bit. And then I'll glue it onto there. So let's see what we got going on with this while that's drying. So with this, what we kind of need to do is make sure that these are going to be lined up where they're supposed to be in these holes here. I'll usually do this front in two parts, two steps really. So I'll do these first, and then after I get this glued in, then I'll do the front hoops for where everything else goes. So the ends of these roll bars go into the firewall. I've got it taped where I need it to be, so kind of put those in there. And then these brackets line up in little slots on this bar here. So it kind of just fell into place there. And I'm going to set some glue in right in between them. A little bit too much there. You don't want to overkill it. So that should run down in the seams there. I'll let that dry, and then I can lift the bar and the two hoops out. Then I can add these two later on. So I'll let that dry for a little bit. Let's go back to this. It's set up pretty good. Get the front. Put on here. Just slides right in. So that's where I'll stay with this until I paint it, which will be here maybe next episode. I'll paint it. But then you can paint your block and your heads pretty much always going to be the same color. Oil pan may be a different color. But then your transmission is going to be like a silver. I usually do the engine in a gunmetal, so that'll be ready to go. Then we put valve covers on it, the carburetor, the air cleaner, and the heads, and then your belt and pulleys and your alternator starter. Just wait to put those on until you get this main part painted, because it's going to be fun enough trying to get back here to paint that, but it's a good spot. But before I do that, I'm going to clean up this line right here. We'll go ahead and do that now. Move this out of the way. Just sand that line out of there, because it shouldn't be there. It's just basic fit and finish tip 101, or tip number 1 really, is get rid of your seam lines. Because actually tip number 1 is to have fun. I mean, that's why I do it. I enjoy it. It's relaxing to me. And when at the end of the day, when you're done, you got something that you can display and be proud of. Or people will say, hey, that's a cool looking die cast. It's not a die cast. I built that. It's always a good shocker. So anyways, that's pretty well cleaned up. You don't have to worry as much on the top as you would the bottom, because it's going to be covered up by the firewall and the transmission hump there. But if you were doing like a diorama or something like that, where this would be on like a stand, an engine stand or something like that, then you would want to do the top just like you would the bottom. And I may still have a little bit here. It's really hard to tell if I still have a line here or not. So I believe that's done. Let's see what it's like. Okay. That seems to be done as well. So if I'm going to pull this out of here. So this bar is in good. Again, we just glued it right there. I didn't glue it back here because we want to pull the roll cage off to paint it later on. So now what I need to do is to put these hoops in. And I need to figure out which side goes which. I believe this goes on this side, and this one with the one tab goes on the other side. But I'm going to make sure. Just reference this. Oh, I was wrong. So 2 tabs go on passenger side. This goes on the driver's side. So that's the kind of downfall of like pulling the stuff out before you paint it, I guess, because sometimes it's hard to figure out where the stuff is supposed to go. It looks like this doesn't want to go down in that hole right there. So I'll do a little bit of cleanup on that. I thought I had these cleaned up decent. Quick little sand. Alright, so that pulled out of there. That's what you got to be careful about. So this whole side had pulled out when I was trying to force that in there. You just got to be super careful. Just got to sand it enough to where it'll get down in there. Or you can make the hole bigger, but I don't really feel like doing that. So we're stuck trying to make the peg smaller. So that fit in there good. All right. Put glue in here. Other side's probably gonna have the same problem, so let's go ahead and sand that peg down on that one too. Okay. That's as far as I'm going to go today with it. Next time, I will pull the cage off, we'll get it painted, we'll get the firewall painted, we'll get the front roll bar painted, I'll get the chassis painted. I might glue these on too before I do all that. Glue them to the roll cage and then have them come down here. I might do that too. Paint the engine. Paint the divider for the trunk. Get that painted too. I'll put that bar in. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try to use those little brackets off of there, but I'm probably gonna end up cutting them off. So that's all I've got for today, and I will see you next time. Thank you.